All right, so we're doing our Unit 2.2 test review. Oh my gosh. So the first thing you have, you're going to evaluate the inverse, G inverse of -6. Remember, when you're looking at the inverse of something, that means instead of starting with X, you're starting with the Y and finding your X. Inverse means you're going backwards. So instead of me starting with the X, I'm starting with the Y and I'm looking for my X. You write number 1, and then you're writing the G inverse -6 and writing your answer. All right, let's look at it really quick. All right, so I'm going to start with the Y and find the X. And when I go to the Y and I go to the X, what do I get? 1. That's it. Yes. Is it an emergency right now in the middle of the review? Your call. All right. Okay. Now we have F inverse of 0. F inverse of 0. F inverse of 0. All right. Let's talk about it. If I go to 0 and I'm at 0 at Y equals 0, I need to find an X value. And the only X value that has Y as a 0 is at -4. Okay. So it's saying, what is your X when Y is 0? That's -4. All right. I don't know. Hmm? Yep. All right. Next question. It says, determine the value of X if f of X equals X cubed plus 1, when f of X equals -26. So what is it saying? Basically, it's telling you if you have X cubed plus 1 equal to -26, solve it. F of X is your Y. So you're taking the function and setting it equal to that. Find your cube root on your calculator. If you can't do it in your head, it is math. You literally press math. I think when I said it's math in the past, you thought I was being sarcastic, but I'm not being sarcastic. It's the math button. You did have enough time. All right. You just had to write X cubed plus 1 equals -26. and solve. I didn't mean to click on him. All right, so if I'm solving this, I'm asking myself, what is x cubed plus 1 equal to negative 26? What do I need to do to get x by itself? Subtract 1. So I'm left with x cubed equals negative 27. What do I need to do to get x by itself? Take the cube root. If the power is cubed, I'm taking the cube root. The cube root of negative 27 equals negative 3, because negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 equals negative 27. Again, if I wasn't strong with the cube roots, I could press the what button on my calculator? Math. All right. How can you tell from a graph if two functions are inverses of each other? Just write inverses. Tell me what you put. You can paraphrase. You just should have something written for each problem. All right. It is the reflection. I tried to give you a hint with the cat looking in the reflection, by the way. Okay, so whether they reflect over the y equals x tells you if they are inverses. Whether it passes a vertical line test is telling you whether it's a function. Okay, not an inverse, but whether it's a function. All right. We're going to combine composition and inverses. So composition says you start from the inside. So the first thing you need to do is find the inverse, F inverse of -2, and then use that for the G inverse. So inside to out. And inverse means you start where? At the Y, Miss Jones. Good job. Open the door. No, it's not. All right, let's go over it. So inside, F inverse of -2. So I'm going to go to the graph. I'm going to go to -2. And when I go to -2, what do I get? 0. So at -2, I'm here at 0. So now I'm going to go to 0 on G. And what do I get? -1. It's the inverse. You got it. The inverse. -1. Inverse means I'm starting with the Y and finding the X. Okay? All right. Which graph passes the vertical line test and horizontal line test? Meaning, when I go vertically, I only touch 1 point at a time. And when I go horizontally, I also only touch 1 point at a time. You have a 50-50 chance of getting this correct. That means there's 2 possible answers. I mean, you can write the line test. Yeah, which graph? On your paper, you actually can put both, but on here, you only can select one. Does that make sense? Nothing. They'll come back. Other forms of review. All right, horizontal line test. So if I had a straight line and I was to go up and down with that straight line, how many points do I hit at a time? 1. If I had a straight line horizontally, how many points would I hit at a time? 1. Say, but what happens here? I hit 2 points. I hit 3 actually. What happens here? I hit 2. So these 2 fail the vertical line test. Everything past horizontal. They may all pass the vertical, but what happens to the okay? All right. The line test, vertical and horizontal combined, determines whether its inverse will be a function. Yeah, without having to graph it, if it passes the horizontal and the vertical line test, I know that the inverse is a function. All right. Solve the equation. Log base 10, 100. Think about what the log is asking you for. All right. Think of what it's asking you.
So it's the number of keys.
So a log question is, remember, a log is asking you this base to what power equals that value in the parentheses. So you're asking yourself, 10 to what power equals 100, right? And so 10 squared equals 100. Okay? Yep. Yep. If it's a perfect log, yeah. You'll have an example of a non-perfect log here in a minute. All right, this one, solve the exponential equation. So write it down. 2 to the x equals 1/76. How do I solve that? How do you solve an exponential? How do you solve an exponential? All right, so let's talk about it. I'm gonna need. How do you solve a log with an exponential? You have to do a log. So you gotta take the log of the same base. So in this case, what is my log? 2. So you have 2 options of taking the log. You have log using common log and just dividing. So you have that choice, or you can press alpha window 5 and put in your base. What's my base? 2. And what am I trying to find the log of? 176. Okay. So those are your 2 options of how you could approach that. All right. Okay. Evaluate G inverse at 12. Remember, inverse means you start where?
Oh my God. Oh my. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, wait. Oh, that's exactly that's
The -1 tells you have to do the inverse. Well, I don't know what you did last week. All right, G inverse. That means I'm going to go to 12 and see what the X is. So I go to 12, and what is my X? 2. Bless you. All right, how do you verify that two functions are inverses of each other? How do you verify that two functions are inverses of each other? All right. All right, so we compose them, and when we compose them, what do they need to equal? X. They both need to equal X. Okay. Find the inverse of h of x equals 3x plus 7. Find the inverse of h of x equals 3x plus 7. What is the first thing you do when you're looking for the equation of an inverse? Flip what? You switch your x and your y. All right, good job. So again, we are switching. So therefore, it becomes x equals 3y plus 7. After you switch, what do you need to do? Use inverse operations, right? To get y by itself. So we're subtracting. And then what's left to do? Divide. And because this can't be simplified, we leave it as is. Okay? All right. Find the inverse f at -1. Again, inverse means we go where first? The y, and we're looking for the x. So remember, you're going up and down, then left and right. Up and down. Yes, it's 12. Almost, everybody. All right, so when we go to -1, I'm going to go down to -1, and then I'm going to go left or right towards the function. I'm going to go to the left, and it's going to take me to what x value? -2. Inverse. Try it again. What is the F inverse of 5? All right. Almost everybody. I go to 5, and I go to the right, and what is the X value? 4. All right. Use a calculator to approximate the solution. Log base 213.
Oh my God. I know I did this one. Oh my God. No. Yeah, I put it in the wrong. Five. Oh.
All right. What is the inverse of f of x equals x cubed plus 3? Then number them. 15. I don't know how you have 16. All right, so first off, to begin with, what could I have eliminated? The 1 without the 3, right? So, because it was a cube, not a square, okay? These mean that you had x squared, and did we have x squared to start with? No, so that narrowed us down. And then what's the opposite of adding? Subtracting. You're doing your inverse operation, okay? Good job. All right, last one. Evaluate. It's just a traditional review question. Is there an inverse? No. You start on the inside. There's no inverse. All right, so let's talk about it. So F composed of G at 3. Notice this time, was there an inverse? No, so that means we're starting with our X. So G of 3. G of 3 takes me where? To 1. And then I'm going to take 1 onto F, and 1 takes me to -1. Okay, there was not an inverse. Okay, congratulations to our top 3. Ivy. I don't know who that is. Johnny. And last but not least, Annabeth. Yes. That is it. All right, guys. So again, remember for your test, I do not make the test, right? So because I don't make the test, I can only provide you with all the tools that I was told to provide you with so that you can do well on the test. Remember, make your note card. You will have access to the Kahoot if you want to go back through it. And